One of the things that I love is that two films idea of your life. And there's like two stories you can tell. One that is safe and full of regret, and one that is risky and full of pride and joy.
Once upon a time, at a university near you, students used to line up to get jobs in investment banks or elbow each other out of the way for management consulting roles. Because those were where the most accolades were and the most energy was coming out of business school. No one was saying, I want to start a social business when I graduate from business school. Most people probably hadn't even heard of the term social entrepreneurship. The economy was good, jobs were plenty, and social change was something you did on the side or maybe on a business volunteer day. And that's what the world looked like when I graduated with an economics degree from an undergrad program in the year 2000. But times have changed. I now am the Deputy Director of the Skoll Centre for Social Entrepreneurship at Oxford's Saïd Business School. And we think more than 50% of our students are coming to business school because they want to positively change the world through their careers. Actually, we have a lot of students applying saying, I don't want a career afterward, I don't need to go to the career services, I'm going to start a social business. So for those of you who don't know what a social business is, social entrepreneurship is the combination of entrepreneurial thought with creating social change. So it means we no longer have this bifurcation saying you have businesses where you make money, and then you have governments and nonprofits where you give it away. Businesses can be used for social change, and nonprofits and government can be entrepreneurial. Okay, great. So we have students that want to go do this. They want to change the world. We need that, right? So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with the good intention? Actually, nothing. Nothing is wrong with that good intention. But there are some things wrong with how we are funding and how we are educating for this change, because we're pushing them into narrow choices of what they can do to create social impact. We can either say, go take this finance class and go work in that hedge fund, or if you want to be the social change maker, go start a social business. Here's our social entrepreneurship accelerator. But we don't want every student going out carrying a flag saying, hey, I'm a social entrepreneur, follow me. We don't need more and more social businesses. We need more social impact, which means we need the accountant and the people who are going to help grow those businesses, which means we need people to go into government and fix our broken government systems, and people to go into the corporations and the systems that are already in place and start changing those from the inside. But that means we need funding and training that looks at that whole spectrum of careers. So let's take a look at what's causing some of this change. The demand for social entrepreneurship is coming from a lot of different reasons, and this is one of the studies. But I think there's something else that is driving young people right now to want to have social impact careers. The students that I'm meeting with, a lot of them, like me, come from wealthy countries or wealthy communities, and they no longer have the burden that maybe their parents or their grandparents had, which was that they need to make a lot of money so that they can provide a better life for their kid. Because they've had pretty good lives already. And actually they look on social media or they go travel the world, and then they feel angry or guilty or empathetic and realize, wow, the privilege that I have gotten to enjoy has come on the backs of a lot of other people's lives. And they want to change that. They want to right some of these wrongs. And so they're driven to do that. They're also driven by the media, because the media is selling them this idea oftentimes that, any man can go out and be this hero. But the media loves to sell the stories where someone didn't know anything about something and they left behind that hedge fund job and they've sacrificed to go help people abroad. It's almost like the less you know about something, the more accolades you get. But what about the people who really know these problems, the homeless people, the people who've been living in economic poverty, right? They're often overlooked with these funds and with this training because we're focusing on the heropreneur. Our educational institutions have gotten on board with fueling this, and sometimes they don't even realize it. In their business plan competition, the judges often don't even understand the problems. And so you have students pitching to solve problems they've never lived and they never apprenticed with, like a group of students who wants to make an app for Nigerian farmers, but they've never farmed and they've never been to Nigeria. Okay, funny. I know, it almost sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm actually underplaying this. This is pervading the education systems of the global north. And what we're doing is we're giving these people scarce resources and scarce money and telling them to go out and solve problems. We're actually making them go to hackathons where they have to come up with solutions. But our education systems are no longer training them to understand problems. And we need to be able to fuel that good intention in the right way. It's leading us towards the heropreneur, this belief that the entrepreneur, the founder, is a higher and better job than any other path someone could take. And what it means is that we have more accolades for you to start something than for you to actually fix something. We have people repeating failed efforts over and over because they're not learning and building upon someone else's ideas. That means no one wants to be number two because the accolades and the support and the training's not there. So why do I care about this? That's me all the way in the corner. I was one of these people. I was the heropreneur. I went to Cambodia to change education. I taught English for a few years, but I promise you, I was not an expert in education, knew nothing about Cambodia, knew nothing about the language, the problems, but I was going to fix it. I was going to change it. I won a business plan competition. I got money and accolades and awards. No one said, hey, Daniela, go work in Cambodia first. Learn a little bit about education. Meet some people who actually know this stuff. Work with them. Maybe they did, and I don't know. I didn't listen. But I went, and I was going to change it. Right? I started an organization, and I actually spent 6 years in Cambodia. And slowly, over time, realized that actually if you take action on a problem you don't yet understand, you make a lot of mistakes along the way. We started an education nonprofit that was all about things. We built schools and gave bikes away and school uniforms, but then realized that things don't teach kids. People do. So we changed from focus on things to investing time in people. I started a travel company, a volunteer travel company, so that people could have the best week of their life, like I had. They can get off the plane and say, hi, I'm here to help you. But what they should have been saying was, hi, I'm here to learn from you how I can be of help now or in the future. So we changed our company from a volunteer travel company to a development education company. And we started an advocacy organization called Learning Service, and we're co-authoring a book on this topic. And the idea is to rethink volunteer travel. So it's not I serve and then I learn. Oops. It's I learn how to serve. Ironic, given my own past. But maybe you have something like this, something where 10 years ago you were like really strong believer in something, advocating for something, and now you look back and you're like, oh gosh, really don't feel that way anymore. Hopefully, in your case, you didn't have someone with a camera following you around for a year, but I did. 2005, 2006, the first year of PEPY, the wonderful filmmaker Daniela Papi-Thornton followed us around and made a film called Changing the World on Vacation. So we get to see me, the heropreneur, in Cambodia, and we were asked to be vulnerable, so here you go, I'm gonna hide in the corner. It's hard. I'm having a good day, so today's a good day. But I mean, there's days where I'm lonely. I'm wondering if there's anyone else who feels the way I do, who has this, this pressure of. I feel sometimes trapped. I have started this thing that I know that I'm going to have to do for a really long time, and not only that I have to do it, but I want to do it, and I'm choosing to do it. But it's a lot of pressure. I can't just say, hey, I'm going to go live in Alaska for a year and never live there, It can be scary. And especially for a wanderer like myself to know that I have this commitment and 500 kids at a school who we're supporting and I want to continue to support. It's a lot of pressure. So I showed this film to my husband a week or so ago in preparation for this, and I had never shown it to him before. And I was like hiding under my pillow the whole time, like, oh God, oh no. And there's scenes where we stopped school for the day because we brought all these volunteers in, and we have this loud music playing and kids are dancing, and it's so hard for me to watch. But one of the good things, if there is one, of having someone film you when you are doing things that you would regret later, which I have a feeling this little human and all the kids in this generation now will often have, is that it then holds you to account to that. It holds me to account. And if anything, hopefully, it will make me better able to share this message and change this system because I lived it. I was the problem. So I got curious. I said, who else are other people worried about this? How do other people feel like we need to change this Heropreneurship model so that we can get towards collective impact? And I was lucky enough to be part of something called the Calor Social Leadership Program. So I used my research project there to ask that question. I interviewed about 40 social entrepreneurs, educators, funders, people like Andy Middleton right here, who gave me great quotes and great thoughts. And I wrote this report called Tackling Heropreneurship and a Stanford Social Innovation Review article. And this is my first real talk on some of the things that we found. What I found was that the way that we were talking about, the way that social incubators and investors and educators are talking about social entrepreneurs and social businesses was as if you could lift people out of poverty. They often use that term. Anyone who's spent time in an area of economic poverty knows that nobody gets lifted out of poverty. People fight tooth and nail and crawl their way and work their way out of poverty. It's not about that heropreneur. Yes, we can help. We can remove unfair trade barriers. We can add training programs. We can give access to markets and money. But we cannot lift, and we need to change that conversation. We also need to change the conversation around scale. When we talk about businesses, we talk about scale. We say, okay, you're going to outcompete your competitors, gain more market share, grow your business, grow your bottom line. But that is not how social impact scales. System change looks a lot more like this. A lot of disparate organizations who might be working together or not working together, all pointing sort of in the same direction. When I interviewed John Huggett, a social entrepreneur based in London, he said, Daniela, do you know the entrepreneur who scaled to the size of the problem of gay marriage in America, who was able to help change the laws? No, we don't know that because it doesn't look like that. It looks more like the bottom. And the person leading that organization to get bigger versus trying to change this system, they need to have different skills. So we need to start teaching these skills, how to create action without authority, how to galvanize different disparate groups together. And this is what we need to start teaching in business schools. We also need to start changing how we talk about and how we make decisions around funding. Now, that could be a whole talk on its own, but I'll give you a high level. You might have seen Simon Sinek's TEDx talk where he talks about the why, how, and the what. And he's talking to business people and he's saying, sell the why. Because people will buy from your company if they believe in your why and they believe in your values. The thing is, social entrepreneurs and people working to raise money from philanthropists, they've known that for a while. They sell the why and the what all the time. They might say, Cambodia, 1 in every 4 to 5 people was killed during the Khmer Rouge, and the educated people were killed first, and why you should support us is because we need to rebuild the education system. Or they might sell the what? We're building schools. Come join us. Do not give your money because of good whys and good whats. We need to start asking real questions about the hows. Are you partnering with the government? Who's making key strategic decisions within your organization? And do those people understand the problems? How are you maintaining this in the long term? If we just ask this question, if every business incubator or application for funding, social investment said, tell me 5 organizations that are working in your sector or your geography or your issue that you have learned from and you have spoken to, and you're building upon their success, or if you learned from their failures, what have you learned from them? We would stop repeating a lot of the same problems and wasting some money, but we don't ask this. It seems like common sense, but it's not common practice. So we need to stop incentivizing this innovation and incentivize building upon. And we really need to rethink this whole idea of business plan competitions. A lot of the research I found, other educators had the same concerns, that we were using scarce resources to tell people to go fail fast, which is, this lingo in startup world. Those guys with the app for Nigerian farmers, right? They'll get to go to Nigeria, spend a summer, their expenses are covered, they have some focus groups, they bring some farmers in, they give them some watermelon, they learn some stuff, and they find out, we didn't really understand the problem to begin with. Now, we're going to always fail sometimes. We're going to have to iterate. We're going to have to learn. But we should be minimizing some of that. And we should also not be giving money for people to go play in someone else's backyard with someone else's problems when that money is scarce. So here's a few things I'm going to leave you with that we've tried at Saïd Business School, at the Skoll Centre. So during this research, I came across the term apprenticing with a problem. I interviewed the executive director of the PEPY Foundation, and Jessamine said, this term, apprenticing with a problem, I'm like, I love it. So we created a funding pool so that students no longer have to only apply to the business plan competition to get money. A lot of educators have read my report since I wrote it, and I had a man named Peter Maibel from the University of San Diego wrote to me, and he said, my PhD research said the same thing. A lot of the students that I interviewed who entered business plan competitions, they would have entered something else to have the chance to get money to go learn, but they knew they didn't really understand the problem, but that was the only path for them. So we're hoping to create more apprenticing with a problem funding around the world. And we're also trying to tackle this broken idea of business plan competitions. We launched something called the Global Challenge, because supposedly ecosystem mapping competition was not a sexy enough name. But it is an ecosystem mapping competition where students no longer win because they have the best solution, but they win because they have the best understanding of the problem and the current landscape of solutions. In my report, I tried out something called an impact gap canvas to help students think through these kind of questions. So on one side you have, what's the challenge? What's holding the status quo in place? Why is this problem persisting, and who benefits when it does? And then on the other side, the solution. Who's already trying to solve this? What are they doing? And what's working? And then in the middle, what's the gaps? Who's being left out? And the students who've used this a lot of them have been able to change some of their assumptions through that process. We're actually hoping to launch this at universities around the world next year. So if you know anyone who might want to do that with us, please have them get in touch. And we're also changing how we talk about the skills and the competencies that you need to be a social change leader. We used to just focus on the skills of how to measure social impact, how to grow a business, how to scale a social business, but we realized you also need to teach how to understand problems, which is where apprenticing with a problem comes in. We also need to help people understand themselves, not navel-gazing stuff, but your emotional intelligence, your cross-cultural communication skills, how you work in a group. And so I started a leadership program called Leading for Impact with our students to help them do that, to find a them-shaped hole in the world that they could go out and add value. Because not everyone is meant and designed to be an entrepreneur. And the last thing we're just launching now is an alumni recognition award, because we realize we need more accolades, more role models, not just the heropreneurs that were holding up before. In my report, I looked at 9 different people, some of them who had apprenticed with problems, some who didn't and wish they had, and mapped out their lives. Some of them are our alumni. And I can give these to our students to say, hey, read this, learn from this. So these are just some of the ideas that we've had, and some of the things that I've tried to help tackle heropreneurship and help that really stressed out girl on the boat realize that the whole world doesn't need to rest on her shoulders, and she doesn't need to be the hero who goes out and save it. And hopefully, among all of you or anyone watching or listening, you have other ideas too. So please share, and thank you very much for listening.